There we go. Now we're back in business. Perfect. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. It's an honor to. I'm gonna mute that one. Cool. All right, brother. So we'll get it restarted. I'll cut all that out. Fucking Instagram started putting a backlog on it. So thank you for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. Before I get ahead of myself and I start talking a little bit too much, give us a brief intro, bro. Who you are, what's important to you.
What's up, man? Hey, first of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I was like super humbled that you even asked me to come on here and just kind of have a genuine conversation with you. But yeah, man, I'm Mike. I'm Mike Venidis. I'm a CXO of a digital marketing agency. Blessed. I help grow home service companies, and I've done that for about 12 years out of the 16 years that the business has existed. And I just absolutely fell in love with personal development and growing people. Got 150 rhinos that like I hold dearly to my heart. I want to help become the best version of themselves. And then it's just fulfilling. Like when you represent a bunch of businesses, it's their life's work. You're just trying to grow the crap out of them, and that's their dream. So I live a life filled with gratitude. I feel extremely blessed. Like I feel fulfilled and purposeful. And yeah, man, I'm just here to shoot the shit with you. Hopefully I can curse.
Man, if you couldn't tell already, bro, I cuss all the time because the military and sometimes have been challenged to not have podcast episodes where I don't cuss. And bro, those are the hardest ones because it just flows. And then too, when definitely we're talking mindset, it's like sometimes you're like, how the fuck? And then you realize you're like, I didn't mean to do that, So good point. But
I pride my being authentic and genuine. And man, I'm from the East Coast. I'm a New Yorker. Like it just comes out. I never mean it negatively, but I am just a passionate motherfucker.
What's funny is when I got in the military, all the East Coast guys gave us fucking hard time. Like, bro, all the New York dudes, like we're at the schoolhouse, we're fighting, bro. Like literally, they're like, oh, fucking California ends. Y'all are easy over there. Y'all just taking it easy. Blah, blah, blah. New York, the Bronx, we fucking throw down. And like every day we're fighting. And it was funny because I'm like, bro, California's worse. And it was like, I kept saying that, like, oh, I hate East Coast people. They're dicks. And then I started realizing like the music I was listening to was all East Coast, my friends. And like I got married to my wife. My wife's like, I thought you don't like East Coast people. And all your friends are from the East Coast. So I was all, yeah, but at the same time, they walk a different way. They talk a different way. They're about their shit. And she's like, so what you're saying is they're pretty much the same as the street in California. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't think of it that way. It's like we think about these different regions and you're like, one of them's harder than the other. But in reality, it's like we both have those common things. And some of my best friends are from the East Coast. So it's funny now thinking back at it because it's like, again, your mind's only going to go as far as you can take it. And if you're limited, you're not going to think about that.
It's so true, man. And like I live in Arizona now, and I'm native. Like I've been here for like 30 years, but like I was old enough when I came here to understand the difference. And I go back and forth, and it's for sure a whole different mindset. Like the way I always describe it to people is the East Coast folk, at least where I'm from, like we speak and then we think. So we clean up our mess after the fact. Like if I hurt your feelings, like I care, like, I'll fix that. But I feel like on this side of the country, they tend to think before they speak, and they're very, very cautious and tedious with their words. So sometimes I rub people the wrong way, but I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to adapt.
I'm the same exact way. And when people come to me, they're like, you're an asshole. I'm like, no, I just expect more out of you. Don't come to me with this bullshit. And I literally put that on my story last night where I was like, honestly, I had to fire some clients because they hit me with bullshit every time. And it's not that I don't want to hear it, but it's just like, hey, man, like, are we going to keep having this conversation about X, Y, and Z? One of them was like, oh, don't mess with this influencer, which I didn't talk to the influencer. I talked to one of his guys that used to work with him. And I said, how did you start your business? The client had a bad ordeal on that. And that's where I realized like, hey, man, this is the 5th time we're having this conversation. I think we're no longer a fit for each other if you're questioning my integrity, questioning who I talk to. And it was funny because the dude got pissed off, like, you're really going to fire me over that? I was like, bro, I'm not going to waste my time doing this. Old me would have fought with you and be like, no. Like, I don't fucking care. Clearly, I'm not about that. I'm not about people who are doing the wrong things. So that's where it was funny. It's like, even with that client, it was like, does this money really matter if I'm not happy? And every time I see this dude's name pop in my phone, I'm like, fuck, I got to talk to this guy again. Which in his case, good human being, he just wasn't ready because he didn't want to follow the nutrition plan, didn't want to
Yeah.
follow the workouts. And it just kind of summed up, where he was at. And in my case, like I've been there, done that, so he would try to,
Mhm.
and I'm like, man, I've been there, done that. Again,
Yeah.
why are we going to be arguing with each other? If my goal as a coach is to help you be the best you can be, and then
Mhm.
again, I'm arguing with you on something that has no relevance.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it's a hard industry to be in, right? Because like everybody wants to become the best version of themselves, but it's hard. It's hard, right? It means you got to do the things you don't want to do, and I would imagine in your shoes it gets tiring, because like how many people are going to come to you, ask you for help, but then not do all the things that you're telling them they need to do to get better. And I would imagine that it gets exhausting. It's not easy. So, my hat's off to you for that's your profession, like for you trying to make a difference in the world and dealing with those types of individuals. Like it's not easy, man. You got to keep them motivated, and motivation isn't 24/7, man. That's why discipline's important.
Ooh, we'll touch on that. That's the next thing we're gonna touch upon. Yeah, for me, it is draining, and like I said, life happened to me. I took a good 6 weeks, talked to clients as little as I could, and then really just focused in on myself. Because what I realized is like for me, I wasn't being the best I can be because I'm more reactive, based off of the way I grew up and where I came from, military, and then trying to just talk to people. And I'm like, why is it that I keep getting upset every fucking time talking to somebody? Or I just want to scream at him and be like, bro, you fucking stupid. And then I like realize like, hey, this isn't it, and here goes, our mutual coach, Sean Michael Crane. You got to be around the people that help you elevate. And Sean would like mess with me. And I'm like, Sean, these dudes are acting like bitches. And Sean's like, no, it's not about you. Because for a while, that's what it was. It's like I was trying to show, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And then no one was seeing it. And it's funny now because like I look at it, one of the other guys in the group is going through the same thing. Now I
Mm-hmm.
can add extra value on it and be like, hey, bro, just keep doing the same shit. Doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter the numbers. It'll eventually happen. The positivity will come from that because I went through that and listening to the actual coach. Because there's been times where I've been like, you know what, Sean, you can fuck off. And that didn't lead to good things. The good thing is like within a quick couple of days, I realized, man, Sean is right. And then I hit him up, hey, brother, I'm sorry for not taking your advice. I'm taking it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I have to try and not be the coach, like passionate, about trying to help people be the best version of themselves. But let's be real, Crane, like he's got enough in it that he can cover the entire group. So I really just kind of focus, man, on like action. I just try to keep my mouth shut. Like I don't post as much. I do rate myself every week, like he asked to. I do make sure I'm checking my items off. Matt knows. Like
Yeah.
I had like a perfect 50 days, and then I went on a vacation, lived life a little bit. So like, admittedly, and not even feeling guilty about it. Like I went and lived. But like the day I come back home, I'm back. Like I'm regimented. I'm back in a routine. But that was what drew me to Crane, and it's great to meet people like you and the rest of these motivated individuals in the group. I enjoy it. But man, that guy's on a different level. And I've met very few people in the world that I feel like, they embody who I aspire to be. So, it's hard. I had to leave my previous trainer, I guess, that I really admired. But like Sean's special. He's doing special stuff. So gotta kind of hang with the people that inspire you and that you admire. And I've been enjoying this program, like especially like when it creates opportunities like this, man. Like I've loved hearing your story on this, and to be here shooting the shit with you, chopping it up, having conversations about life and how to be the best version of ourselves. Like I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful.
I'm grateful as well, brother. And honestly, that's going to be the next thing we talk about now. I love your story. If you don't mind telling a little bit, and if you don't mind, talk about just the gratitude from that. That's the one thing that I took from you, is I really put myself in your shoes, and I was like, bro, I like when I first met you in the group. I started looking at your page, and then you were talking. Like it took a little bit of time for me to be able to get around you because I was like, bro, how is this guy so fucking grateful for everything? Like if that was me, bro, I would be on a whole other plane going through shit. Definitely at the how I used to be, I would have been drinking, So it's
Yeah.
funny. It's like just hearing your story made me realize the growth and the gratitude I had to take in my own life. So I just want to thank you on that before we jump into that part, brother.
Yeah, man. Listen, you have to think about the things you go through and they happen to you, right? Like focus on the things you can control and, how you respond to those things. I think I got, I don't want to say lucky, but I was able to just use some perspective and logic at real hard times. I mean, that's the story, right? 12 years ago, I was downtown in Phoenix, Arizona. I was at an art walk. I got shot. I got shot twice in an attempted robbery, once in the stomach, once in the leg. I was left there. I went into like a shock, passed out in the park. I got super lucky. I mean, hours went by, and ironically, a friend finds me in the park on his way walking home. Calls the police, calls the ambulance, and the rest is history. And listen, people have been through worse, man. But this is what I always say is, I'm like, for one, somebody always has it worse. Always. No matter how bad you have it, I promise you, somebody has it worse. But the way that you feel, I like to think that there's some alignment there, right? Like the worst you've had probably doesn't feel much different than the worst I've had, because the worst is only what we know as people. And I think there was a moment where I woke up the next morning in hospital, stitches, staples. They had to cut my whole stomach, about 12 inches to do an exploratory emergency operation, see where the bullets went. They were 22s. They bounced. They stayed intact. So I was very lucky, but one hit me in the bladder. But it could have been much worse. And to answer the direct question, where does that gratitude come from? It's one of these things where, like, you wake up and you go, I'm here. There isn't much I'm going to do about this. So I've got one of two options. Like, I can be upset. I can be angry. You know what I mean? Or I have a lesson. I have an opportunity. And I think this is where I say the luck comes into play. Is like, I was surrounded with good people. I was surrounded with good mindset, and I think when you start to add all of those things together, and the different opportunities and experiences in your life, and use them the right way, it's a powerful thing, So here I am 12 years later, I got with the right people, and I just worked hard, and I realized, like, hey, this is something other people might appreciate. And for the longest time, I didn't really talk about it. I was always scared that people would think I was looking for attention, or people I just worried a lot what they thought, period. And lately, the last year or so, I'm just learning that, hey man, if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's okay. So I've been sharing it more, and I've been trying to intentionally get out there and make a difference. And I've got this project, called the Gratitude Group that I'm working on, and just trying to kind of make a difference with everybody. Like, I just want everybody to be inspired and live their best versions of their lives. And so anyway, it's a bit of a long answer, man, but like, hopefully you got what you're looking for out of that.
No, 100% did. And I appreciate you for sharing, and then even talking about that, and that was something for me. Definitely just listening to you, being around you, where I start realizing that. And like I said, it's funny because when you start putting the energy into things, and also, Sean was talking about one day, like, if you don't heal something, it's going to keep coming back in a different form. I was at a crossroads again, another decision. One of my people got hurt. In my case, if I go from the political standpoint, there's only one option. If I were to commit to that option, my life's going to be ended. So really, I just fucking sat there, and I'm hearing people bitch in different groups and talking about their life, about these fucking issues that really don't matter. If you really think about it, you're like, bro, 9 months, whatever. And I'm thinking about my whole fucking life, and then it hit me, and I was like, bro, I'm not a good dad if I do this. I'm not a good husband if I do this. Like, that's going to take me out the fight. It's going to take me away from that. You know what? I'm grateful for being here. And then it brought me back into a state of gratitude, because I'm like, I get up every day, I stay disciplined, I eat well, I focus on the macros, I focus on being a better dad. Like, all of that took me to be better. And it sucks sometimes. It sucks when you're not the old person that you used to be. And in your old case, you're like, I would have fucking done this. Like, yeah, but at the same time, that's why you were in that fucking position you were in, because you did shit like that. And in my case, I had to realize, like, hey, it doesn't serve me to continue acting a fool, acting a certain way, projecting something that isn't really me, versus now where I can guide, lead, be something. So just being around you, watching you, I was like, hey, there's something about his energy, and I need to know it. And then really, once I started dissecting it, started realizing within my own life, I was like, man, I'm grateful I have this issue. I'm grateful because eventually I'm gonna have to sit my son down. I'm gonna have to be like, hey man, this is what it is. And then when he goes through shit, I can be there for him versus being one of those parents who are like, hey, you should do this, blah, 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 judging him to where I don't even understand the situation versus actually just listening and seeing how I can help from there.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that, man. I mean, I think the reason I love the word grateful so much, or just, I'm just gratitude is the name of the game, is because I feel like it's like a core value for me personally in my life. But what I noticed is that it's like a math equation, like gratitude comes from doing hard shit. Hard shit comes from discipline, forcing yourself to do the things that you don't want to do, knowing that it's going to be the best result in the long run, versus getting something in the moment. And I think that, doing hard things, most of the world won't. So if you can stay consistent, you'll you'll achieve success. But the beautiful piece about gratitude on this is that you're just grateful if you can hack into that, like no matter what you have, dude, whether it's a Lambo or my paid off Hyundai Sonata, like you find this satisfaction and this genuine appreciation is so fulfilling, And that's the thing, man, is like I've seen multimillionaires who live shit lives and they are so unhappy. And I've seen homeless people that like are the people that I'd love to spend a day with because they've got 10,000 times more fucking perspective and appreciation than the asshole in the high tower. You know what I mean? So for me, I just think, well, if I'm trying to figure out life, like gratitude feels like the key to everything. It feels like how you can be grateful and appreciative at having nothing, which to me is the ultimate life of freedom, when materials and fancy things have no impact or burden on you and they don't control you and you can find satisfaction in any moment. It makes these things like your appreciation for your wife, your family, your children, like 10x because it's just, I get worked up just talking about it, man. So it's my mission. It is my mission. Like my goal is to help people find gratitude, and the fact that you are saying that you were able to send some of that from me is the ultimate compliment, and I really appreciate you saying it.
I appreciate you, bro. And I'm not trying to hype you up just to hype you up. I don't do that. And that's what's funny is like when I start focusing that energy, and just being intentional with the moment, that's been something that's better for me. I've really struggled at that, especially because when it comes to mindset, it comes to the way you moved. Definitely being around family, add a perspective
Mhm.
on that because limited mindsets. And then sometimes they just talk about bullshit. Not that
Yep.
they're bullshit. It's just like we're talking about soap operas. We're talking about fucking sports. We're talking about shit
Mhm.
that has no relevance to our life that's actually gonna help us get forward. And when you're
Yeah.
always pushing, 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 it was something like that. And I'll share, especially because we're on gratitude right now. I used to always say, like, I'm from a shithole, I'm from Fresno, it's fucking hood. Even when you go from the hood to a nicer place, it is still that. So when we moved, I went to a good school, I went to a predominantly white school. It was like, oh, you're over there, you're ghetto. And then it was funny, it's like I got to San Diego, I got called ghetto again. And I'm laughing because I'm like, I'm not that ghetto. When I go to my wife, she's like, yeah, you are pretty ghetto. And I start thinking about it. I'm like, it's just the way I fucking grew up and the way that I talk and the way that I interact with people. Uh, that's the way it led to. So
Yeah.
recently we were back in Fresno and some dude tried to try to fucking bang on me in Planet Fitness. And he had like red shorts, black t-shirt on. He's like, what's up? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey man, I see you getting it. Good shit, homie. And I dapped him up and he just looked at me like, what the fuck? Because normally it would be us fighting and whatever. And like it really just gained perspective on it being around this time around. Because normally I'm like, I fucking hate this place. And then I just like really sat there. I drove by where I used to live, how tough it was. And then I just started thinking, I'm like, you know what? I really appreciate it. I appreciate it because that molded me into being who I want. Clearly, this isn't a place where I want to be. I really don't want to
Mhm.
live there ever again. It's not for me. I don't want my kids to have to experience that. Just a trapped mindset of thinking about the same things and not really seeing more of the world. And it came back, me and my wife started having a conversation. And she's like, something shifted with you. I'm like, yeah, my whole life I fucking hated this place. I hated being here, hate saying I'm from here. Cause even with certain people in Southern California, I'm like, oh, I'm from here. They're like, oh, and then they start talking about gangs and shit that doesn't hold relevance. And
Mhm.
I was actually watching a video on that. And they're saying, like, if you're not something, then it won't hold relevance to you. But for me, I wasn't, but I associated with people. And also, talking to people and they're like, oh, you're from here, this is what it is. And then I would get reactive over it versus being like, it doesn't fucking matter, you know. It doesn't matter if they call me these words, doesn't matter if they say whatever. Like, I'm not a part of that shit. And that's where really this time around going home, it just clicked in. You know, it's like I could easily be doing the same thing, living the same life, bitching about my problems, not doing anything, doing the 9 to 5, going home, drinking, smoking, playing video games. Like, it's a life, but it ain't really fucking living. So I'm grateful that I actually live my life and then get to be away from home to experience and be like, hey, you know, at least I don't have the same people, places, and things, and I'm doing the same things all over again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, man, the conditions we're born into don't define us. What we do with them does. And it's ironic this is coming up because, you know, I just posted about this on, I think it was maybe Instagram last night because I was in deep thought. And man, I'm blessed. Like my 4th grade teacher was substituting at the middle school I graduated from about a year or 2 ago. And she just reached out after she had seen my story and just some of the things that I was sharing and my perspective on life. And one thing leads to another. And I had the ultimate gift of being invited back to this middle school to speak to these 7th and 8th graders about that. Like, the conditions you were born into do not define you. What you do with it does. So like, I really don't care what anybody thinks about Fresno. Like, the right people, they're going to hear, oh, he's from Fresno. Like he might have seen some shit. That's like a hard place to come from. Like, what did he do with it? You're either this or you're that. But if you're at the right people, the right mindset, you know, those people aren't looking at Alundis in the way of saying, oh, this guy came from this place, so he's probably shit. The good people are looking at you going, fuck, he's seen some stuff. There's some things here that I can learn from this guy, and I need to find what they are. That's what life is about, man. Like, you need to find, there's a purpose in everything, every single route. Like, there's a reason this is happening right now, man. Like, and I'm trying to look for it constantly in this conversation. Like, what am I supposed to learn from Alundis? Like, what am I supposed to, like, there's a reason our paths are crossing, and I have to find it, you know? And I think that that's the key, is like, you kind of got to go through the motions of life, and it's stuck because we get stuck because we're going through the same routines and patterns, right? And patterns are good because you fine tune, like, you know, you get better when you do the same things over and over and you focus on the macro and how to improve, but then it just feels comfortable, you know, because after you do it for a while, it's the same shit. And then it becomes mindless. And I think that it's very important that you have to have intent. You have to remember, like, hey, just because I'm checking, you know, these items out at the grocery store today doesn't mean that there isn't a purpose or a potential opportunity in this conversation with the cashier right now in this moment, right? And like, how long and how hard can you stay focused every single day about the goal and the intent and what you're trying to accomplish? That's the stuff that I think like we struggle with that really is going to change the future, man. So like, that's great. Let the world think whatever the fuck they want about Fresno, man. Like, give me a good story. I'm excited you're from Fresno.
That's a damn good point, you know, and I didn't really realize that until I started getting into podcasting, and I started getting a lot of people, friends who got out of prison. They're fucking laugh every time I say it. They spark up. They're like, "Oh shit, you're from there?" You know, they're like, "I know about them," and then they either say like the gang that's from there, or they're like, "Oh, whatever." Like, those motherfuckers don't fuck around. I'm like, "Yep, got in a lot of shit," because me being naive and not really thinking. I got myself in so much situations where I don't. So now I'm always looking at everything, reading mannerisms. I watch people. And it's funny. It's like, I'll tell my wife about that. And I'll be like, oh, that person doesn't check out. Like, they're hesitating, whatever. I don't like them. And she's just like, what do you mean you don't like them? I'm like, I'm just telling you, something doesn't check out about this person. And every time it comes true, it's like, there is something major about that person that I feel from. And she's like, oh, you just don't trust people. I'm like, yeah, I learned from my own family that snakes will bite you. So the snake will bite you, liar will lie to you, cheater will cheat on you. So just see it for what it is. For me, I could see it as a person. Yeah, you know, sometimes you are wrong, but for the most part, like, if you really listen to somebody, they're going to tell you exactly what it is. And two, you can ask questions to see what's important to them. Hey man, if you're a busy fucking day all day, and then you still need to get this workout in, you still need to stick to the macros. Do you stick to the macros, or do you get the workout in? And you can see clearly, you know, what they're going to take and the steps in their life by where they're at currently and the way that they're speaking. And that was something huge for me, where it was like my
Yeah,
wife was like, "Oh, you're so judgmental." In my case, I'm like, "No, I'm protecting my energy." But
yeah,
two, yeah, it's a good point to take in is like you can be judgmental if you don't focus on actually listening to people.
yeah, yeah. Hey, you're making a good point. So a good point though too, man, is like, because I say always look for what you can learn, but you say they're like some people are snakes, man. Like they're people that are actually hurt you if you're trying to open up and let them in, And I think it's important to reiterate, like sometimes these relationships, well, one, the quicker you learn that it's not always about you, the better. But
Facts.
I think that it's also important to understand that there are two roles. Sometimes you're not meeting people to learn from them. Sometimes you're meeting people to help them. So you have to remember that, right? Like, you're in this business. It's what I admire about you. You want to be the best version of yourself. You're a coach. You're trying to help people, even people that don't want to help themselves. Like, you're still going at it. Good for you. But there are some moments where you just kind of have to put your ego aside and you have to say, hey, this is the moment where I'm learning. I'm filling my cup, because if I fill my cup, I have more in my cup to pour into others. And that's important for guys like us, right? Because we want to change the world. We want to help the world, but you can't do that if you don't help yourself. So you have to know when am I the teacher and when am I the student? And I always say this, I'll say it to the day I die. I learned it from John Maxwell when I spoke with him at an event called RoofCon about a year or two ago. And he said, the greatest leaders are the greatest learners. So like my goal is to always have humility, to stay humble, to learn, and like, like that's just an essential part. Like if you ever want to be a leader, inspire anyone, like you have to be willing to learn too. So I think it was really cool that you pointed that out. Like it can't just be about like, what am I learning from somebody? Like some of these people, they need your help. They're not people you should learn from. They're people that you should inspire, help, and look out for.
Ooh, again, you hit it on the money. We'll jump into talking about communication with our wives. But speaking of communication, it was funny because I used to always tease my brother-in-law. So my
Yeah.
wife and my brother, my father-in-law, I don't like them to an extent because they naturally have good legs. So they don't need to work out and they look like they have fucking shredded ass legs, dude. And it's fucking irritating because they have giant quads and I'm working out all the fucking time. And my legs look nowhere near what theirs do. They don't even fucking
Show
work
them
out.
your arms, man.
Yeah,
Show them
yeah.
your
And
arms.
my strong point is the arms, So it was funny because the other day I ordered some 5-inch shorts and my wife was like, "What the fuck? You're ordering 5-inch shorts?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm finally getting definition in my legs." And she's like, "You used to tell my brother he's gay for wearing those and like always making fun of him." And I'm like, "Yeah, have you seen the dude just fucking plays basketball and he looks fucking great from his legs. His legs are great." And it's like it's irritating because it's like you have that much potential. Why don't you just go all in on it? So we're literally like having a little argument about it. And she's like, "Are you cheating on me? Like, what's going on with your energy?" And I'm like, honestly, I've just seen those shorts are actually pretty fucking cool now. And I was like, two, I never fucking had that as a kid. So there's limiting beliefs I had to break through because where I'm from, it's like, no, we wear baggy fucking everything. And still to this day, I'd rather have baggy t-shirts. I know they're like, oh, wear a fitted shirt. You look better. It's more perfect. Like, no, that's not me. I always wear baggy t-shirts because my weight fluctuates up and down. And for me, that is me. So it was funny having this conversation with her because she was just like, something's different about you. And I'm like, to an extent, I was wrong. You guys are right. She's like, wait a minute, you're saying you're wrong. I'm like, no, no, no. Like I tease you guys to an extent because I believe you do need to work hard, even though
Yeah.
you do have naturally good genetics. But two, it just proves a point. Like everybody's good at something else that you're not. And for me,
Yeah.
that was frustrating because it's like I got to do all these fucking things. I got to squat all this. I got to focus on Smith machine. I got to do all this, which I don't care anyway because I have all these injuries with my body.
Yeah.
And it was funny because having that conversation with her and just communicating, she was like, "Oh, you're just talking about you getting better on growth, not you trying to impress another woman." And in my head, I'm like, "Where the fuck did the other women come from?"
Wait, when do I have time to impress other women?
Yeah, I was like, dude, I take care of the kids. I do this. She's like, well, you go to the gym late at night. I was like, you think after all the shit we go through that I'm like, oh, I want to have another one? Like, fuck no, dude. Like, that's the last thing I want is to be preoccupying myself on something. But I've already walked down that dangerous path. So it's like, why do I need to do that? And earlier you were talking, and you're saying your lowest point. And it was
Yeah.
funny because I would tell my story every podcast. My wife was going to leave me. She took the kids for 3 weeks. And you know what? That hurt me. But really thinking about it, it's like, that one guy is gonna be like, oh, the shit you went through is not that fucking bad. And I really had that happen to me. They're like, dude, it's not that bad. She can get over it. And then when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, no, it is. To my wife, it's the worst thing. To me, it was the worst thing because I let my family down and led down dangerous path. And now I need to communicate with that. So now you're going to hear me say that multiple fucking times, not
Mhm.
because I want to, not because I like to, shame myself of what I did. Like, no, I'm
Mhm.
saying it because as a man, I did the shit that I said I wouldn't do. It led me in a dangerous place. I almost lost fucking everything. So you're going to see me speak a little bit differently. You're going to see that I watch people if we go eat somewhere and I see if somebody's flirting with the waitress, like, I've been there, I've done all those things. So I'm
Yeah.
not gonna fucking sit here and then lie to your face about communication or the way that we're speaking. Like, no, I gotta be exactly that.
Yeah, you got to learn from it, dude. I mean, that's basically what you're saying is like, hey, I screw up, but if you don't legitimately learn from it, like, does it have its value? You know what I mean? Like at Rhino, it's what I always tell my employees. I tell them, I say like, learning is the currency of a loss, is what I'll usually tell them. So like, there'll be times we have an oversight. We're not perfect, right? Like, they might make a mistake. We might lose a client, an account, and usually when that happens, they end up in my office and they say, hey, walk me through what happened here. And the goal isn't to come down on them. Like, sometimes you want it to feel a little heavy because you want them to get uncomfortable and make sure that they learn from that moment, but it's all question based. Hey, what did we learn from this? What are we going to do different next time? Like, if you can look at me and tell me you learned from it, and I'm convinced you learned from it, and we're not going to see you repeat this mistake over and over and over again, like, that's a currency I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to fall short if I know it's going to result in growth to become great. So I think that's the key. It happens that way in everything in life, with your spouse, with your family, with your job. Like, you have to just make sure that like the shortcomings are actually learned from. Because if you do that, dude, I mean, you're fine, right? Fail forward is kind of the mindset that I'm trying to preach.
Again, you talked about alignment, if it's God, if it's the universe. You talked about you putting a post yesterday, and then I spoke on what you posted on, and that's exactly what you're speaking on right now. Is a post I did yesterday. I literally talked about in I did it intentionally so somebody can degrade my character and be like, dude, you're an asshole. I
Mhm.
talked about I buy my wife flowers and be like, I fucking hate cleaning, I hate putting flowers away, but it would
Yeah.
piss me off because I'd get my wife these flowers. And then
Mhm.
she would leave the fucking flowers out, and then it would be a fight because I'd be like, I buy you fucking flowers. You don't even cut the flowers. You don't put it away. So my point yesterday was, if it takes 10 minutes, put the fucking flowers away and shut up. Like, why are we going to start a fight on something of that nature? Also, I've learned that because my wife had 3 brain surgeries, and it's really frustrating at times.
Yeah.
Frustrating because there's good days, there's bad days, and then there's in between to where like she doesn't pick up after herself, she forgets a lot, and I
Yeah.
could easily, old me would have been nitpicky and be like, "What the fuck?" Every fucking thing, and then I just realized like, dude, I really don't care. And two, I don't like when she jumps on me on that shit. So
Yeah.
it took me to challenge those things and to start being a better husband by communicating, by talking, by actually listening to her. Because I like to interrupt sometimes, well, a lot of the time, and it would bring me to falls. It's like continually doing the same thing. So when it comes to communicating with our wives, just
Yeah.
being better to work on a relationship, because we have all these things going on. What do you recommend for us to do to take time and then really focus on that marriage? Because I know a lot of times it's easy to say we have the business, we have whatever, and then we don't show up for our spouses the way that we should.
Yeah. So one, I think it's important to start off by saying, I'm far from perfect. I have a lot to work on. Like, I'm a passionate guy. So like, I talk a lot because I'm so passionate about wanting to help, inspire, change. And funny thing is, my wife is the greatest listener in the world. So I'm blessed, but like, she's also very sweet, genuine, and kind to the point where I'll sometimes be like, dude, I gotta shut up. Like, she's being patient and she is listening to me go on and on. And like, she probably wants to be heard too. So like, I'm not perfect. I know what I need to do, but it's hard. I think that's the first thing that's important to say. Like, let's be realistic. But to answer the direct question, some of the things that I feel like have gone a long ways, like I know that she appreciates them, is there are moments where I say, hey, am I listening to listen, or am I listening to solve? Now that's something I learned and I've heard in books, podcasts, like it's common amongst marriages, but it's a big one because women are wired differently, and sometimes they just want to be heard. They're not, and we're wired to solve, right? Because like we love it and we want to fix. We want them to be happy. We want to give them everything. So the problem is like what they really want, in the way that I think some women are fulfilled is just to feel heard and to feel appreciated emotionally. They're emotional creatures. So that's one thing I would say. I think the other thing too, is I was listening to you talk about the flowers, is, you know, don't ruin a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, the flowers were probably an amazing feeling, but if it turns into a fight, like, the next time she sees the flowers, it's probably not an amazing feeling anymore. It just reminds her of the shitty fight. And I know it's hard because it's domino effect, but like, I'll give you the example. I think one of the first fights my wife and I ever had, you know, and we've been together 2013, so, you know, it's 10 years. Our first fight was about the dishes in the sink. I'm very, very like OCD clean freak. Like, I clean as I go. My clean surrounding, I feel like, is an aura type thing. It brings me comfort and peace, you know, keeps my mind clear. And she's more strategic. It's funny, like, I'm a visionary and she's an operator. Like, she thinks it makes more sense to like do 5 dishes at once in a group rather than doing one as you go. So, you know, they pile up. It makes sense when you think about it, but I can't help who I am. But here's the lesson in this, okay? Like, what I had realized is, like, we had this massive fight. Like, the dishes don't bother her, they bother me. And if you focus on the things you can control, just do the fucking dish. Like, it's a me problem. It's not a her problem. Like, it bothers me. So rather than complain at her to clean her dishes all the time, like, I just fucking clean them. You know, here's the thing is, like, I married her in sickness and health. I love her. And that includes like her faults. That includes her shortcomings. So for me, like, that's just one price that I'm going to have to pay. And I should be willing to pay it for all the great things that she brings, you know? And I will tell you this, like, your wife is the biggest, most important decision you'll ever make in your life. Like, I'm blessed in that sense. You know, getting shot and going through my hard comings, I don't think if I didn't change my mentality, like, I'd have her today. Like, I think she's attracted to me for a lot of qualities that I generated from my perspective and my attitude shift. You know, back in the day, dude, when I was in, you know, the band and I was doing the touring, like, I was, I don't know. I mean, I had a heart, but like, I was very, I guess maybe vain is the word. Like, I was ignorant. Like, I was focused on the, you know, the wrong things for the wrong reasons, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And what I know is that I have a life partner that I'm chasing 24/7. Like, she inspires me. She motivates me. She constantly makes me wake up and want to get better. It helps, right? We talked about discipline. So like, when the alarm goes off at 4 a.m. for me, like, I flip out of the bed. There is no snooze. And part of what inspires me to do that is, I'm like, hey, you want to be the ultimate fucking husband? You want to be the ultimate man? You want to feel worthy of this woman? Like, you need to do the things and have the mindset that 99% of the other men in the world won't, to feel like you deserve this woman. So like, that's what I mean when I say it's your most important decision, is like, you've got a person here who fills your cup and drives you to this extent that you're like, I'm fucking going to go the distance that nobody's going to go, because I don't ever want to lose her. And she deserves the greatest man on the planet. So these are just the types of things that I think about when we're talking about communication, your wife, like what you can control, the arguments, the fights. It's just easier said than done, man.
You make an amazing point there, and that's something that was going through. We're doing a whole lot better now, but the daughter sleeps with us, and she's 2, so she has her own bed, and up until she was like 1 and a half, maybe. She always slept in her bed. She was independent, and then now she wants to sleep with us. So my wife's like, "Hey, it's not always going to be like that." And initially, it was irritating because it's like, then our marriage actually started taking a strain, because it's like, then we no longer cuddle, then nothing, you know. So that was something for me where I was like, bro, you're fucking up my plans of what we're doing. And then 2, it's like cleaning the house every fucking day, dude. Like, it's a fucking madhouse. Like, if you're not paying attention, or excuse me, if I'm not paying attention, my son is over here eating fucking dog food, putting it everywhere, because we got 3 dogs. And then he gets into the cat litter, because we got a cat. So he gets the fucking cat litter. He's eating it the other day. And me and her were like getting mad at each other, because I was like, why didn't you just close the door? And then she's like, well, I thought I did. And then I'm like, but you didn't. So it's like the small things. And then I literally stayed up Friday night, right? Or excuse me, yesterday morning. All yesterday morning, I like deep cleaned the whole living room, cleaned the house. Bro, within like an hour, the whole house is fucking wrecked again. My son wants to get applesauce, and then he's sucking on his fingers. He's throwing the shit all over the floor. So I'm pissed because I'm like, bro, now I gotta mop this shit up again. And then there's dishes everywhere, and the living room's wrecked. And the last night she tells my daughter, she's like, Dad just cleaned the whole house and you guys wrecked it already.
Oh,
And it just added perspective because I'm like, this could have easily been fights like we used to have because she would be like, oh, you need to clean. You know, when I get home, since you're staying home with the kids, the house needs to be clean. And I'm like, in my case, like I've been on sales calls all day. I've been taking care of the kids. I've been
yeah,
running in and out of outside because now we're playing outside.
yeah.
And my kids want me to play with them during the day. And again, if I'm not in that gratitude state and I'm not like, hey, I get this opportunity, and I really don't even say I get to anymore because I feel like for me, I wasn't living in gratitude. I just say
Mhm.
I do. You know, I do take care of the kids. I do go outside. I do sales calls while I'm taking care of the kids and playing with them. Have the AirPod in. Like it gave me so much more perspective because then I started realizing like what the actual opportunity is, and then channeling that when it comes to communication aspect, talking to her like, man, it's completely night and day from what it was because we have those conversations of, hey, this is what's going on. This is
Mhm.
how I can help you be better. Hey, this is why this didn't happen. Because you know sometimes we do fall short, and for me, it's like that. Like, yes, I want to get the dishes done, but making money is more important. So to me, I'm going to be doing what I need to be doing versus doing the
Yeah,
fucking dishes. And then to her, it's like the house needs to be in order before you do anything else.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a hard one, man. You know, like it's funny when I have these conversations. My wife and I don't have children, so like, but they make sense to me when I hear them. But you just don't think about that. You're not in that situation. You know what I mean? And I'm just going, oh, that would be so infuriating. I empathize because, like, I can only imagine cleaning the whole house. You know what I mean? And then 10 minutes later, there's applesauce everywhere. It would drive me crazy. But then, like, what I was doing when I was listening to you, I was like, I was imagining, I was like, so what if I did have that situation, right? Like, how would I focus in that? And the only thought that comes to mind is I'm like, well, they're kids, they're going to do it. How I respond to it is the key there. You know, like, do I show anger? Do I show frustration? Do I argue with my spouse in front of them? Like, what are the things? Because I think the patience and how you handle things, like, because I do, like, again, I don't have kids, but I would imagine they can sense. They can sense, like, they do what they see, they say what they hear, they can sense a hostile environment. Like, they do have feelings, they have a sense of safety, you know? So, like, how we carry ourselves as parents in those moments, I think, are probably, like, what I would imagine is going to be the most important part. So it's like a perspective shift, like God, fate, science, whatever you believe in, like, maybe you clean the whole house just so they could fuck it up to see how you would handle it. And there's a lesson right there for
Nice.
your child. And if I looked at it that way, I'm like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to clean the whole house 5 fucking times today. Let these guys trash it and show them I'm even keeled every single time, because this is an opportunity and a lesson that I have to teach my children.
Boom. You hit it on the money. That's exactly how it's been feeling. And my daughter, she will, when me and my wife fight, you know, we fought a couple times in front of her. She's like, no, mom, dad. And she goes and gives us hugs. And then we stop, you know, and we're like, all right, you know, that is her thing, is not to fight in front of the kids. But two, it's like
Oh,
clearly she understands what's going on. So
yeah.
we don't want to repeat that. You know, for me, I was always into that as a kid. So
Mhm.
definitely deep reflection and figuring that out. And that's why, like when I say, especially for my brand, it's always about recalibrating your mindset because
Yeah.
essentially it's what we're doing. You know, is we're figuring out all the bad that needs to go and then replacing that with good habits, with
Mhm.
positivity, with cultivating new mindsets that aren't going to be limited anymore. So I'll leave you with the last question here, brother, because you've been an amazing guest. I know we'll have a round two soon. What would you say to the previous version of yourself? We don't know where to start. We just want to align ourselves with our definition of success.
Ooh, that's a hard question, Alundis. If I was prepared for it, I would have came to this podcast with it before I got shot, and I was singing in the band. I wrote a letter to my future self. So it would be fun to read it and see what would I say to that person. Um, but to answer the direct question in the moment, if I was talking to my past self, I would probably say, hey, slow down, listen more, and appreciate the moment.
That's fire, brother. Took a picture to post it, give you a shout out. But I think you
Appreciate it.
summed it up well. You know, we talked about gratitude. We talked about so many things in this episode, and it really brings it into that. You know, it's like we need to slow down. We need to really just be in the moment and be present with it. Because with all the things going on in the world, we don't think about that. So, great point, brother. Where can people find you, man, if they want to keep up with you? They want to hear more of your story.
Facebook. I mean, I'm on all social media channels. I mean, this is the thing, dude, is like I'm just trying to help my rhinos be the best version of themselves so that we can grow the best businesses on the planet in the home services industry. And I live, eat, sleep, and breathe, just trying to be the best version, man. So my goal is really just to do everything that I can for anyone that I can. And yeah, just follow along. Add me on Facebook, add me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on all the channels. And my mission in life is to just keep giving perspective lessons and share everything that I can to try and inspire other people to find appreciation in life and to be the best version of themselves and to feel fulfilled and have purpose.
Amen, brother. We'll definitely send people your way. Thank you again, my brother. It was an honor.
Thanks for having me on this. I'm grateful.